All right, class. So I've added some color to the drawing, and now I want to add a little bit more of a visual interest using gradients. And I want to go over how to do that for this specific drawing. Let me point out that I do have a backup copy in my layers just in case something goes wrong. I can always start again. So I'll go ahead and just close those layers up. And let me point out that I added these colors by using just the traditional fill and stroke. So I would change the stroke of a color or the fill of a color. Right now, the entire car has this kind of medium gray stroke, and you can obviously see the fill colors that it has. But I want to try some gradients to see if that adds any visual interest. I need 3 minutes to do that. They're all going to be in the Windows menu. I need the gradients menu, so you go to Windows Gradient, the swatches, and I have my specialty swatches, which is the Baroque swatches. So that's what I need so far. The first step is select the shape you want to add the gradient to. In this case, I'm going to do it one shape at a time. So let's start with this bottom shape. I'll click on this gradient and it's going to turn it up to a black and white gradient. That's not what I want, but that's okay. So again, I selected the shape and I clicked on the gradient slider and it turned it into a black and white gradient, or black, gray, and white gradient. So on the black and white slider, you can see these little circles, or it might be squares depending on the version of Illustrator you're using. What you can do is replace these colors. You select it by clicking on it, and then you can drag a swatch from the swatch library into that gradient while it's selected. And if you drag it right on it, it replaces it. If you drag it somewhere below the swatch gradient, it adds another color that you can control. For this example, I'm going to keep it simple and we're just going to work with 2 colors. Now, it's a very subtle change, but it does go from light to dark. Let's say I want it to be lighter. I'm going to double click on that color and I get a few options. I can choose a different color, which is not what I want right there. I want a lighter version. So I'm going to go to the palette where it says color, and then I'll go ahead and drag it towards the lighter color. There's actually other options too. You can go to this top menu and change it to CMYK or RGB, and now have a little bit more manual control of the exact green that you want. I just wanted something that went from a darker green to a lighter green. All right, but this isn't the direction I wanted the gradient, from right to left or left to right. I want it from top to bottom. Now, to do that, you need to select that shape and go to the gradient tool, and now you're going to get this live gradient slider that you can click and drag to change the gradient, but you can also click and drag outside, and that controls the gradient. This can be a little bit tricky and it can take a little bit of work. I find that the best way of doing it is trial and error, so if I don't get it right the first time, I'll go ahead and try it again from a different direction. So right now, I'm clicking and dragging down, and I can tell, it's very subtle, but I can tell the gradient is going from dark to light towards the middle. And I think that's what I want, and that looks okay. I'm going to go ahead and do this to this top one. Now that I like that gradient, I'm going to save it as a swatch. I'll select it, I'll go to the swatch library, and I'll click New Swatch. I can title it if I like, and then click OK. And now it's a swatch that I can go ahead and use in other shapes and apply it. I could have also used the eyedropper tool. Now, obviously, the swatch might apply in a different way than you expected. So if it's not the direction you want it to go in, use that gradient tool to change the direction. So in this example, I want to go from light to dark. And I think that's good. My advice is use this with caution. I think these light gradients that change subtly in colors from dark to light, that's when it works best. If you make very drastic changes, like, add a different color, for example, let me do that just for the sake of exaggeration. That's gonna look a bit exaggerated. If you add these subtle changes in gradients, I think that's gonna look nice, and it might just add the right amount of visual interest to your artwork. Okay, I went ahead and applied these subtle gradients to different parts of the car, different panels, and I think it's having kind of the desired visual interest that I wanted. It added a little bit of something that I think I like. I will caution you, I think if you overuse these might look bad, or if they're very extreme, it might be just a little too